Welp, I honestly should have done this sooner. Especially when you know it's from the video that it's not a rant. And the hatred towards this movie is just overblown, illogical, exaggerated, and completely stupid. Especially the way how the hate happened in the first place. Sure, well, I do understand why people hate it, but most of those reasons are kind of unjustified or too overblown. Plus, compared to the majority of critics, this is honestly one of my favorite of those Disney remakes. I am Lindsay, and today I'll be reviewing on the 2025 movie of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, or just Snow White. Now, just to let you know, I do actually like the original Snow White as well. Although, I will admit that I like this movie a bit better than its original counterpart, if I'm being honest. But anyways, let's begin. So, you all know the story about a girl named Snow White that's the daughter of a royal family, which we actually get to see that man about their story. Tells the origins of Snow White before the actual Snow White movie began. So, many years ago, a king and queen had just had their daughter, their Snow White, during a snowstorm to honor that snowy white thing. And basically show what Snow White's kingdom once was before who was meant to become the evil queen who replaced pure light and warmth and organic with manufactured stone in despair. But it wasn't always this way. It was once a place that was full of love, and within through this whole kingdom, where the good things grow, which is the first song of the movie. And we basically see how the kingdom originally was, and then especially how Snow White originally lived with her real parents, where kindness and hospitality were important. Though that all changed after Snow White's mother, the queen, Snow White's real mother, passed away due to an illness, and her dad, being the king, ended up marrying a new woman, who is the said evil queen, Grimhild, voiced by Gal Gadot, who sent Snow White's father away and took over Snow White's home and kingdom with an iron fist. And as you already know, in the original story, the queen had a magic mirror that tells her who's the fairest of them all, which mirror would always respond that she was, as you all read that story. Until one day, after Snow White, now as an adult, voiced by Rachel Zegler, had showed kindness to a young man named John, and ended up showing her inner beauty, and with her second passion, leading to the mirror that said that Queen Grimhild is no longer the fairest of them all. Describing her as hair black as envy, lips red as blood, and skin as white as snow. Snow White. She tries to get by her and literally stab her head while on a stroll through the forest, just gathering flowers and going to her favorite apple tree. And the huntsman, despite knowing the consequences if he didn't kill her, so he told Snow White to run away deep into the forest, away from the evil queen. To escape her wrath, replace and put an apple into what was supposed to be Snow White's heart in the box that the queen gave him to put Snow White's heart in if he did end up killing her. And ultimately resulted in the huntsman getting locked in a dungeon. While Snow White, after a hard night through a dark forest, Light, when she met some animal friends, finds the dwarf's cottage, who were scared of her at first because they thought she was a ghost. Though Dopey, he saw her for real, Light showed compassion to him and had The other dwarves rest assured she's a very friendly person. And as you already know, dwarves let her stay with them for the time being until she can go out and find her daughter, where she meets up with the same man that she freed from the queen, Jonathan, and a team of misfits as they're gone from a bunch of thugs who ultimately ended up helping Snow White along with the dwarves to get her the courage to break the status quo that the evil queen did throughout the kingdom, on her kingdom, and have her become the girl that her real mother and father always knew and wanted her to be. Now, I know some of you were off-putted by the changes, but not me actually. Although I'll tell you the truth, I actually enjoyed and liked this Snow White movie better than the original. Don't get me wrong, I like the original Snow White as well. Although I look past the controversy that happened before the movie, honestly wasn't that bad. In fact, I enjoyed it as much as the original Snow White movie. Truth be told, with some of the older versions of the original movie that they're based on, we don't get too much backstory. And it's not that interesting as some will remember it to be, and doesn't give us enough depth or enough reason for why should we care. Well, mostly because they don't explain the story too much, since this was basically back in the early days of Disney, where movies, despite still being as whimsical as remembered to some people, but they also don't have too much to go over of the actual story, and was more told in the opening, in a storybook, which is not bad. Although, you all would know that these movies can be pretty outdated. The original films are back then, but we still like them. But anyways, for the Snow White movie, to me, it's actually slightly better than the original version, mostly due to score. Though I didn't mind controversies, and compare to Bob Iger and all that controversy he caused us for it, along with the many lives that he's ruined. But the truth is, this movie is nothing like the controversies that people say about it back then. And I actually really like they do more story with it. And Rachel Zegler as Snow White, with or about the controversy to her in the movie, but really, she's the best part about the movie. And definitely gives a great performance as Snow White, for what it's worth. And I love how they gave more dynamic and more focus on Snow White's relationship with the prince, and their relationship that leads to a romance, and gives the real payoff to the real true love's kiss much better and more believable than the original, since you don't really focus on the romance plot of the original that much. And Snow White, and people say that the original Snow White story arc in the original movie was more flatter than a pancake. And is way better than other live-action remakes like Dumbo, Mulan, and that stupid 102 Dalmatian movie back in the 90s. And I really love the song Waiting on a Wish. And they do at least bring people's favorite songs from the original movie, being Hi Ho from the Seven Dwarfs. Though I will admit that the dwarfs are, aside from Dopey, are kind of unlikable, especially in the beginning. Though Snow White is able to fix that problem as well, though. And Dopey, who is voiced by Andrew Garfield, who was my favorite character in said movie, Snow White. And his and Snow White's moments together are very sweet. Oh, and of course, with So I Work, which is also still a catchy song, like it was in the original one, where Snow White tries to teach us words matters and to get along. And the way Snow White impacted them and Jonathan's lives, and to know the others that and cared about especially the beginning with our people in the kingdom, and with those she meets in the forest and the doors. It's very lovable. And the visuals are very, very beautiful and full of light. Although, my only complaints with it is basically the way the other doors treated Dopey in the beginning, as I said before. And it does get a bit boring when we get to Snow White's kingdom being dreary and gloomy. Mostly, the Queen's there. So the way Snow White finally confronts her, along with her new friends, and Prince John, after he gives her a kiss of true love, that's actually earned his time, after she deployed Nightfall, is able to break the spell, and they all went to Snow White's kingdom, so to finally stand up Queen Grimhill, and finally show people the light, and have the members of the kingdom remember who they are. As it's basically revealed that the guards that the Evil Queen are some of Snow White's closest friends when the kingdom was in its original glory. With one of them being a baker to always give fresh and organic treats, and one of them is also a father, like Snow White's dad once was, before the Queen sent him away. And especially with the visuals are very astounding. Dang and magical. Like not just what Fortnite already said. The opening. And when Snow White enters the forest and meets all these creatures and new friends of hers. And my favorite scene in the ending, once the Evil Queen is finally vanquished, where the mirror finally tells her the truth about why Snow White is now the fairest of all to begin with, and always will be, even everything tries to get rid of her despite him claiming her fairest of all once she's holding an apple. Except, especially when Prince John was able to break the spell, the magic mirror tells her that Snow White will be the fairest of all.
Is thy beauty, but it goes no further than the skin. For Snow White, beauty comes from deep within. And so, my queen, at last you see, she will always be more fair than thee.
And then she breaks the mirror, which leaves the Evil Queen into her all body consumed by ash and fragments, and made into a new mirror, ending her reign of terror once and for all. And it's pretty cool how even the most delicate and fragile things can have meaning to it, and how even things that are harder to store on diamonds can end up getting shattered. And I love the reprise of the song The Opening of Where the Good Things Grow at the end. And overall, especially when you look past the controversies, this movie is a delight. And it does give justice to the original movie. And the bombing of this movie is not Rachel Zegler's fault. Or any of the other people behind this movie, except for Bob Iger, that is. And yeah, as it was already said before, and in the beginning, it wasn't as bad as I thought when I first watched the movie, and second time and third time as well. In fact, it's even better than the original, and well, more specifically and mainly, it's way better than people say it is, and also way better than the original once was. And I really liked the original Snow White movie. But this is still just as good. And I really think people like Andrew Garfield, Rachel Zegler should all get more credits done, and should not be judged just by the controversies around them. I really love this movie just as much as the original film, which got a 7.5 out of 10. Well, for the 2025 Snow White movie, It's a very solid movie and one of the better live action remakes for Disney. Yeah. And my rating for it is an 8.5 out of 10. It's very excellent and beautiful, and it's definitely there's nothing like the controversy surrounding it. And like I would have wanted it to for so long, and now finally got the chance to do so. Really enjoy this movie. I mean, what about you? Do you also not think it's not as bad as you think? And which Disney live action remake is your favorite? And which movies did a better job of representing in the original counterpart from back then? Way better. Other than something like Mulan 2020 and 102 Dalmatians. And I hope you enjoyed this review. And we'll see you guys next time.